Okay, so what I'm sharing with you right now is your homepage for your new website. Now, within there, we've got a picture of somebody swimming in the background there, but you notice it's kind of grayed out. Well, that's because it actually has something sitting in the foreground. So it has a pop-up, an alert pop-up sitting in the foreground. And it's sitting in the foreground, and I can scroll in the background, but I can't actually click on anything. And that's because I have to acknowledge that I have read this pop-up. Now, the purpose of this pop-up is to provide your audience or your public with some information before they get in here for whatever reason they had shown up here. So it may be something like this, where it just says, "Hey, welcome. We got a new website. Come and check it out, and feel free to navigate around that kind of stuff." And sometimes it might be more of a I guess a community announcement, something like they're going to close the downtown core, emergency closure of the road because of a water main break, or I don't know, you're giving away free hot dogs next Thursday, whatever it is that you want to put out there for people to know before they actually get in to find out, about garbage and recycling, or accessibility for different places within the recreation, whatever it happens to be. We can put this up here, at the beginning. Now, this is part of our news segment. So when we learn about how we add news stories and things like that, we'll teach you how to build these pop-ups. Now, this pop-up has to be addressed before we can do anything. Now, there's a number of ways that we can do that. By reading it, we can simply, once we've got the information, we can click on the X in the upper right-hand corner, and that will dismiss this. Now, you're able to have more than one of these up, and they will have, if there is more than one, there'll be little kind of directional arrows on the outside edges here that where you can scroll through and read them one at a time. Now, as you finish reading them, you can always dismiss them by clicking on the X that goes with it. But of course, maybe you were here earlier today, and this is your second time back to the website, and because it cleared the cache out, you come back and boop, there's those pop-ups again. So you can actually get rid of them all in one shot, because we've now included a button up in the upper right-hand corner that says dismiss all of the alerts. So what we can do with this is we can click this button, and if we've got 12 alerts that are on rotation there, it will get rid of all of them simultaneously. So different ways that we can get rid of this pop-up. So once we've read it, we can click on the X and dismiss it. And what it does is it livens the color up, and now we can actually engage, not just scrolling, but I can click on things within the home page. Well, what are we looking at here on the home page? Well, there are parts on here, or components on here, that are going to travel along with us no matter where we go. And that would be the header, which is the white bar at the very, very top here, and the footer, which is way at the very bottom. Okay, these are going to travel with us each and every page that we go to. Now, as we do those kinds of things, we'll be able to access either pages or sections or resources down here at the bottom. But I've got this little white box here that, as I'm scrolling through, gets stuck at the bottom. And this is your cookies acknowledgement. So this will appear for everybody along the bottom here. It's just saying, hey, we use cookies as we travel through here. And by holding onto the cookies, we make your pages load faster moving forward. And so I can agree to this, and it will disappear. Now, it's not going to show that warning for 365 days. That's the timer that's on the particular one. As long as I stay in my same Chrome browser that I'm using here, it's not going to ask me about that cookie acknowledgement. Okay, so now that I'm engaged with the page, what am I actually looking at? Well, let's start with the header. So in the upper left-hand corner of the header is your logo. And this serves a couple of different purposes. Number one, tells you you're in the right spot. Okay, we're dealing with a relay. That's good. That's where we want to be. But it also functions like a home button. So as I said, this would come through to every page I travel to, and it will sit on the upper left-hand corner. But if I want to come back here to the home page, I can click on the logo here, and it acts as a home button to bring me back. Now, to the right of that, we have what we refer to as nodes. A node is just a fancy term for a collection of categories or collection of segments that we can engage with. So we've broken down the different pages that you can access in here with 4 different nodes. So it's recreation, culture, Aurelia Youth Center, and parks and facilities. So each one of these will act as an umbrella. And so we'll create pages that sort of and we'll store the pages where they kind of reflect the nature of the node that we can attach it to. Now, these particular pages that we add in here, okay, are a manual process. We decide which pages we want attached to these drop downs. Okay, so right now we've got 4 different pages attached under recreation, but I don't have anything for any of the other nodes. And we'll take a look at these pieces on the inside. Now, at the very extreme right, we have a magnifying glass. Now, this magnifying glass is a search bar, but it's the same search bar that we have right here in the middle of your banner. And this is just searching the site. So if I wanted to find out about public skating, I might type public skating in the search bar. It will search for any page that has to do with public skating. Well, that's what this does, but this magnifying glass does the same thing. If I click on it, and it's not engaged at the moment, but it should open a little box here, and I'll just take a screenshot and let our development team know that they need to engage that. But anyways, what ends up happening is there will be a search bar here that allows you to search the same way that this one does. Now, why have a redundant search bar? And what it is that this search bar that's in the banner here is only on your homepage. So it's front and center for people to engage with along here. But as I said, the header will go move to each and every page that we travel to. So there's always a search bar no matter what page you find yourself on. And to dismiss that search bar, well, if it was displayed, I can click on the X and it will load it back up, and it should bring me back to a little, I'm just going to put it in there, show them that when you close it, it does disappear as well. The magnifying glass should still be there. So we'll get that fixed up for you. Now, beneath your header is the components of your homepage, and the components of your homepage really kind of tie things into and are unique to here. Okay, so what we're looking at here is your banner, and your banner is your first graphic engagement for the public of what's going on. So, of course, being dedicated to recreation, we're going to have recreative, I don't know if that's actually a word, but recreation events here. So people swimming, maybe skiing, might be snowmobiling, whatever it is that you put out there for recreation. We could change this banner to maybe be seasonal or reflect certain pieces within it. Now, I'll show you how we can edit these things later on once we sort of understand the basics. I'm just kind of taking on a little tour right now. So, but it also has the City of Aurelia Recreation. So it's also the explanation. This is what this entire site is about. Now, once we get past that, we get into some other styles of being able to provide information. Now, we always know that we can go to the top here to these notes and use these drop downs to be able to get to where we want to be. But beneath that, we have different ways we can target different areas. And so these things are something called call to actions. And the purpose of a call to action is to get your attention and then have you travel to wherever that information is located. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can display it. So the first kind we have here is something called an icon-driven or icon-based call to action. And they use a little SVG icon as opposed to a real picture. And these are the more static ones, right? These are things that are probably going to stay like this all the time. They're not going to change. So these particular pieces are targeting different focal areas that are sort of frequently searched for by people. Okay, and all I have to do is click on it, and off they'll go to a page like that. Most of the pages that you'll have here can be found or will be found attached to these later on as well. It's just sort of without having to search for it. Here they all are laid out in front of you. Now, the ones below it, these are call to actions as well, but they're a picture-driven icon or call to action. And so what the purpose of these are is to be a little bit more flexible. And so we put these pictures in here to sort of target those same kind of pieces, but you can change those pictures. So if some of them are seasonal, you can certainly change the pictures up, or maybe you leave one of these to be something that sort of a little shout out to activities that are going to come up, or if should it ever happen again, a COVID lockdown, have a link to a COVID page or something like that. So these are picture driven ones to get people's attention, and they've set them up to have a little bit more description than we do with the ones at the top or in the icon driven ones. So that's what these are. And I'll show you how you can build these on any page going through here. Now, beneath that, we have a carousel or a slider. And the purpose of this is to give you a great big visual, but allow you to then move through. So you're not just stacking them up and making for a big, long, scrolly page. So you can see here we've got public skating. And if I click on the arrows on the outside, it'll move out to different categories along through here. So it's meant to give us these great big visual sections in here without stacking them and have them just take up space. We just say, hey, just rotate through them and see and be able to see that information. So that's what that does. Now, below that, we have the What's Happening section. The purpose of the What's Happening section is to provide information on an ongoing basis. This is the changeable information that we have out here. So as you can see over here on the left-hand side, we have the news. So as I mentioned earlier, looking at the pop-up banner, that we have a news segment. So we're actually able to create news stories that we can put out there and be able to let people know of events and things like that that are going to happen, but then they're going to pass. Now, it doesn't mean that we lose them forever. We can obviously only have so many news stories on the homepage, but this is a feed. We actually build the news stories elsewhere, and they get projected out here. I can click on any one of these, and it'll take me in to give me the details. So if I look at Thanksgiving holiday schedule 2023, when I click on that, it will take us over to a page that's dedicated to that. Okay, so this is just a same kind of page, but with information. But Thanksgiving's not going to be there all year round. Once Thanksgiving and the holiday schedule kind of passes, it should be removed. Well, as we add news stories, and of course I can go back to the home page by clicking on the logo up here. So when we work with these, as we add new news stories, it pushes older news stories off. Well, what if I wasn't done reading them? Well, we actually have a button here that says View All News. And if you click on that, it takes you over to a dedicated news page, but it also functions like an archive. So it's going to hold on to all your stories, whether they're projected out onto the homepage still or not. So as things fall off the homepage, or even when on the homepage, they're going to end up being here as well, but it's going to hold them throughout time. So you'll end up with a little bar here at the bottom that will tell you page over page of being able to go back and check these out yourself. Now, with that, we have a filter system, and our filter system allows us to filter and search by a keyword, by a particular category that we attach to the news story, or a date range. You might say, oh, I know what happened back in May, but I don't remember what day. Well, run the entire date range of the month of May, and it will pop up there. So we have a filter system that will allow them to go through the news stories to be able to get a hold of them. Now, we also have this subscribe button. So we're able to have our members of the public subscribe to this page. And what they can do here is they can pick the categories that they find relevant. So if I click on this subscribe button, it will take us over to a subscription. Just ask for their first name, their last name, and their email address, and then says which categories are you interested in receiving notifications when we create stories about that. Now, we only have general there right now, but I'll show you later on when we deal with the news, which will probably be first thing tomorrow morning. I'll show you how we can go into here and actually add categories. So we can increase the number of categories that we attach to news stories to make the filter work a little bit better, and to allow people to pick and choose what areas that they would like to be notified should they subscribe to it. So that's what that does. Now, if I scroll down past it here, you notice I have this blue bar. It says sign up to our, it should say newsletter. I'll fix it up later on. But this is another way. If you click on the sign up today, it takes you to that same subscription. So just to always talk about the news. But this bar saying sign up to our newsletter, we'll move along page by page. It's designed to show up on each page we go to as well. Whereas the one we have here simply projects stories through. And if I go into any particular story, there is a subscribe button in there, but it's more about getting the information. Now, on the opposite side, we have your social media. So we've got it set up to be showing your Facebook page. You don't actually need to do anything. As you add information on your Facebook page, it's going to update what's right here. So this is just sort of a window or a portal to your Facebook page. And as you add things normally to the Facebook side of things, it's going to update what's being shown here. And of course, I can go through post after post through there as well. Now, below at the very bottom here, we have our footer. Now, the footer is just sort of like a conclusion. It's kind of wrapping up everything you've already seen on the homepage. So what ends up happening with that is we have our contact information. So we've got it here so people know how to contact you. We've got some resources. So there's things like a sitemap or another link to the news, those kind of things. And then social media. So we're really only projecting the Facebook out here. But when we take a look down here, we can actually connect with a multitude of different social media platforms. And again, when you click on these, it's going to take you over to that page. It's not actually projecting anything here into your site. It's simply going to allow you to leapfrog off to the social media platforms themselves, focused on, of course, your particular social media account that you've got linked to it there. It's just that some of our, really a website is like an electronic newspaper, right? You flip through the sections looking for an article or something that is relevant to what you want to know about. younger people like things a little bit more in real time that we see. And so sometimes working with the social media platforms is their desired way of being able to connect with these things. So we've provided that for them as well. Now, one of the really cool things about Govstack is that all these things are completely editable, including the header and the footer. We can adjust how any page, including the home page, is laid out and designed. So that's the beauty of what Govstack is that we have full flexibility to use this in any way that we want. So, but we've actually just been looking at this as if we're a member of the public. It's really not allowing us to get in and do anything because obviously we don't want the public to wander in and decide, I'm going to change a picture or I'm going to change the text. We want that to be the exclusive domain of those people who are supposed to be in here working with that. So we need to have a way for people to be able to get in. So you're using that platforms.govstack URL that Caitlin had sent out to you, and I do realize that it doesn't work for some of you. Okay, so one of the things that happens though is that I can't follow in and show you how that works because I don't work for really the recreation, so I can't go in through there. Now, it doesn't mean I can't show you what it's like. I just can't follow the same pathway that you do. So what ends up happening is when you put that particular, that when you go to that URL that's provided, it's going to ask you to put your credentials in, which will be your work email, and it's asking you to create a password. So you create a password. Well, what it's going to do is it's going to send a verification email with a code on it to your email address that you have logged in with. And then, so after you've submitted your credentials, it's going to ask you to put that verification code in. So you put the verification code in, and once it verifies, you'll be able to go to that same URL and just put your email address and stuff in, and that will take you in. So it's a single sign-on process once you got in there. What ends up happening is when you do that and then you've got the whole process working, it'll end up looking like this. Okay. And so I'm going to put my credentials in. What it does is it takes us to a dashboard. Now, the purpose of this dashboard is for you to leap off into the different segments of what's being offered. No, that's not cool. They might be working on trying to resolve your piece there. So let's see what's happening here. It's just going to do it back. So anyways, it ends up kicking you back to a dashboard. Now you're in your dashboard, you'll have the way you guys are using it, you'll have a singular card that sits on your dashboard. Okay. And it's going to be a picture of a guy in a little yellow sweater, and he's sitting at a keyboard. And it's going to say CMS, and that's going to have a button on it that says open. And when you click on open, it will take you into your CMS. Now, I can't show you that at the moment, but hopefully I'm going to send a message off when we break and let them know that I can't get into that to show you what it looks like, and we'll get that fixed up. Now, I have to take a different door to get into the system that you guys do. So we're going to hope that this works because it seems like maybe they're doing some stuff in there. So I'm just going to dodge around. So when I hit my single sign on here, I'm just going to bring over here. So we'll have for fingers crossed that this one's routing me to the right spot. Okay, so he said to try closing the whole thing off and going back in straight again if it does that. So let's give this a try. Fingers crossed. Okay, so at least I could get in. So that dashboard, that mysterious dashboard that I can't show you, when you click on the card that has the picture of the guy in the yellow sweater sitting at a computer and you hit open, it will take you over to this. Now this is specific. You're now looking at the Govstack CMS, and this is how it is laid out. Now what we're looking at right now when we first get in here, and I'll go over the dashboard and the how we work with those things when we do the admin portion tomorrow. So we'll take another look at those things and how they function. So I'll make sure that they get that working so that I can show you. So this is where we land. So everyone will land and it will look like this. Now, this welcome segment that we have in here is where we land, and it's just a welcome page. But there's a lot of other busy stuff going on here. So what do we got? Well, in the black bar at the top, it says we're in the Govstack CMS. Now, if I go to the far side, I have this red or pinky red icon that has my initials in it. And this is my for my login. So if I click it, it allows me to sign out. I do suggest you get in the habit of signing out each and every time you're done working with this, and simply because if your settings on your computer aren't set up to automatically clear the cache every time you kind of close your browser, it can hold on to the login information. If someone was to come to your computer and use your bookmarks to open up something in here, it can actually let them in automatically. So just kind of get in the habit of logging out each and every time you're done working with the system. Okay, so that's what that does. Now, the other one we have here, this white circle, the white question mark in it, this is our sort of informational piece. So if I click on this, there's two segments that go with it, support and learning center. Now, if I click on support, it's going to open in a separate tab, and this is all about if something's not working. So as you saw today, okay, if something's not working, I can't get through, it's throwing errors, then you can come to here. Okay, so you can bookmark this, of course, so in case you can't get in to be able to get to this. But what it allows you to do is to create a ticket. So if you know how to describe the issue you're having, you can create your own ticket to have our development team take a look at it. And if you're not quite sure what's going on or you need something, immediately, you can either email us or you can give us a call. And if our support staff can't resolve whatever it is, they can create a ticket on your behalf and get it sent to the dev team to get looked at. So that's where you can find the information to be able to get in touch with us if you have an issue. Now, the other one that we have here is the Learning Center. Now, as I mentioned during sort of the preamble before we got in here, that we actually have step-by-step instructions on how to action absolutely anything I'm going to show you over the next couple of days. So if I click on the one that says Learning Center here and we head inside, it takes us in, and now we're looking at the Govstack Content Management System, or the CMS. And so down the right-hand side here, I have a subdirectory that's already open with all the different things that I could possibly do. And they're just kind of reflecting what these little cards say that we have in the middle here. So if I want to go in and say, build a hyperlink, and I can click on hyperlinks, and what it will do is narrow the focus and say, this is what a hyperlink is, and how do you want to use your hyperlink? So if you want to link a page on your website, it will give you step-by-step instructions on how to perform anything, as well as best practices and things like that. And of course, as we come through here, you can always use the side navigation here to be able to reference other pages, to be able to, have multiple pieces of information going and things like that. So this is here for you at any point in time by coming through the little white question mark here. Now, as we move page to page on the inside, this bar is going to stay static at the top. So you'll always see these kinds of things. Well, the other thing that's going to stay static is this dark gray bar that sits just below it. And these are our sections, and our sections show us where we can actually go and interact with the Govstack system. Now, you guys won't have all these things. They have me in here as a super user, so I get to see everything. I don't know why they didn't give me like tights or a cape or anything, but that's how they designated me. So I'm able to see all the pieces, but you guys won't have all these pieces, okay? Now, when we take a look at the ones we have here, we're starting off with this first one. It's got the little bar sitting underneath it saying we're looking at the content. So content's about where you're probably going to spend about 99% of your time is on the content. Finding pages, editing pages, creating new pages, deleting old pages, whatever it happens to be, that's what content does. So content is what we're looking at right now, okay? Now, this is a very specific piece that we're having here, but while we're under content, I can go to different places using a contextual menu to change what I'm looking at in the focal area. Now, and we'll pretty much spend most of the next 2 days in here, so we'll work with that. Now, moving beyond that, we have media. Media is where we store all of our resources, and our definition of a resource is anything that's a picture, a video, or a document that you're linking to. But they all have to be stored somewhere to create a URL for the system to recognize and say, oh, okay, I know what to show. Media is where we store them. So if I click on media here and we take a look at that, it's broken down into a series of folders. And these folders contain the pictures and videos and documents that we're going to use. Now, as we look along through here, there's different areas. So all the pictures or videos or documents from news and alerts would go into that one. And of course, we got things like documents, we got global, videos, all those kinds of things. So if I go into global, it has subfolders in it saying, well, these are the social media icons, and here's your logos for the tops of pages and those kinds of things. So all your pictures and things are stored in here, and you can create your own structures of folders in here for organization, so you always know where something is. So everyone will have access to both content, which is where we work on the, create pages, work on pages, edit pages, that kind of thing, and media, which is where we store all those things. So everyone has access to those. But moving beyond it is dependent upon your role. Now, the next two, settings and packages, you won't have. That's for our development team to go in and create the templates that we use. So when you go to build a new page, it's already laid out in a universal template so that all of your pages are similar when you go to them. The content's going to change that's on them, but the layout is going to be the same. And that sense of continuity is important to the public. There shouldn't be any surprises page after page every time they go somewhere trying to say, okay, well, I have no idea where I'm going on this page, and I got to learn something again. All pages should function in the same manner, so we created templates. So that's what setting up some packages does. You won't even need to see them. So they won't even be visible in yours. Now, users, this is dependent upon your role. If you're just a regular contributor, just an editor of pages, you won't see users. Users is for our website administrators. So for anyone that's going to be designated as a website administrator, you'll see users. And all users does is breaks it down to two sections. If I go to users here, and then users from our contextual menu, it says here's all the people that have a login. Okay, so we have some people that have been able to get into here. So we have, well, actually, it's just the one. That'd be Shusho. That comes in as an editor. So the editor function is one particular way that it functions. Okay. Now, we also have people that will be website administrators, okay? Now, we don't have any of the website administrators in here yet, but we will. And so we have GHG administrators. That's people like me, and that's people that are wide open. So for those people that are website editors, they'll have a different role that they'll play on the inside. So whether you're an editor or whether you're a website administrator, you'll have a profile here. So when you finish that profile setup that I was explaining earlier that I couldn't get to work to show you, the first time you click on CMS, it will push your profile into here so that you have a login. It says, okay, yeah, you can come into CMS. Now, when we work with that, up here in this line, we're looking at the users portion, but I also have groups. And if I go to groups, here's all the different groups like editors and website administrators. So you notice the sections that we have up here. For editors, they have content and media. But for the website administrators, they have content, media, and users. So we have that extra step that is granted to the website administrators to be able to come to this users tab and be able to control who can do what throughout the site. That's the purpose of them. Okay. But as far as any of the other things that we have, you don't have access to them. So members is like an intranet site where we can like wall off some information from the website and say, this is employees only, okay? And they have to have a separate login. So when you go and click on a page, it will ask for an extra login. If you're an employee, you have a login that'll let you get to see those maybe HR pages or something like that, where we don't need the public to be able to go in and be able to see that. So they won't have a functioning login. But because you're not using them, that intranet style of things, you don't have the member section. And the last is translation. And all translation does, because it has the capability of being multilingual, if we were doing a fully bilingual site, it would have a little F and R up at the top for people when they're on the public side of things, where they can choose which language they want to see the site in. And all this translation does is make sure that anything we may actually display on the page or on a page actually has a French equivalent if we want to switch it over to that other side of things. Okay, so that's what translation does. So for the most part, we're going to be working with content and media, and then we'll finish up tomorrow with the user segment so that those website administrators can learn their particular functionality within users. And in fact, once kind of you have things set up, you probably won't even go into users very often. Okay. So is everybody good with the pieces that you'll have access to up here? I know I haven't shown you how to function yet, but the nature of the sections here, that they kind of just allow us to look at different things. All right. So on the inside, we have this piece that says welcome, and that's what we're looking at right now. Okay. Now, what is this welcome piece showing? Well, what it's doing is saying, well, here's the recent activities on the site. So it's saying that over the past couple of days, and this morning especially, very early in the morning, Nick was in here and Francis was in here, and they were building the various pieces of your page and doing some work. So this will give you an overall. who's been in here. It's not specific to anyone. It's kind of a chronological thing. Who are the most recent people that have been here? But I also have a section over here with your recent activities. So as I work through this and show you how to do things, it's going to add to this list because it's me specifically. So I'll add into the recent activities because that will be accounting for me doing stuff for everyone. But then I'll see my own under your recent activity. Now, I also have this one that says pending content. Now, what pending content means is things that are waiting to be updated. Now, it's not like that the pages understand, oh, if I got new information, we have to add that ourselves. But the construction and development of a page is actually multi-stage. So as we build pages, we have a save button, and you can hit that save button, and we'll basically hold a snapshot of that page at that very moment and say, okay, we'll hold it here. Okay. And so that's what will be visible. But when we're absolutely done, we need to designate that it's complete by publishing it. So the concept of publish is how we say, okay, all the editing or all the creation I've done on this page is now complete. Okay, so it's good to go. Now, what this does is it says, hey, there is a previously published version of this page. So something the public's able to see because only published pages are visible to the public. So we've got a published version of a page out there. And if I edit that existing page and hit the save button, it doesn't update for the public because it doesn't know whether I'm actually done all of my edits or not. So when you hit save, it creates a sort of a middle ground called pending content or pending changes. And so what it's saying is it's still showing the old published version, but somebody's come in here and done some work and saved it, but has not hit the publish button again to complete the process. So once you hit the publish button after you've done your edits, that's what updates what's visible to the public. So if you have pages that are waiting for that completion, they'll list right here. So you can actually use it as a reference point. When you come in, you might see 12 pages that are pending content. Okay. And so you go and you can take a look and you can go to the people who are responsible for those pages, say, okay, what's up with the pending content that's here? And they might say, oh, I'm still working on that. It'll be completed today or by the end of the week or whatever it happens to be. Or you might have somebody who says, oh, I finished that like weeks ago. But if it's still sitting here and pending content and it's been completed, it's because they haven't hit that publish button when they're done to enact that change. So it's just a way of kind of keeping track to make sure that all the information on pages are being updated and then pushed out to where the public sees those updates. Okay. Now, the other side, if somebody says publish content notes, it just means pages. So we have 59 pages that are out there. None are in the recycle bin. And then how many people are logged on, which is nobody besides myself. Okay. So that's all this is telling us here. Just at a glance, this is just telling us, what's going on. Now, beyond that, we have something called redirects, and we have redirect URL management and redirects here. This is like a temporary redirect. How do I put it? If you had a facility somewhere and for some reason it washes out in a flood, the road's washed out, you can't get to it, you may need to have a page dedicated or a news story or something like that dedicated to saying, you can't go to this facility. So if they click on that facility's page, you could redirect them to another page saying, oh, this facility is temporarily closed because the road flooded over or whatever it happens to be. Or maybe you can't go to the library or the pool because it's on COVID lockdown. So instead of going to the page about the pool or the library and that, we can redirect to a COVID page, giving the information about what needs to be done or where you can and can't go anymore. So when you work with the redirects, if I click on the one that just says redirects, this allows me to create them. So when I hit add a new redirect, it comes over here and says, well, what's the original URL? So I put the pool or the library URL, the page in here, and this is, well, where do you want it to go? And when I click on select destination, I can simply use this drop down here to pick any of the pages that are available and say, I want it to go to this page. So we can create a redirect on a temporary basis to reroute somebody if necessary from the information that would typically be on the page we're looking for to another destination of our choice. Now, once we've created a redirect, we manage it by going into redirect URL management. Now, you don't have any in here right now, but it will list all the ones that you have. But it'll have a trash can with them. So when you're done using them and you want to get rid of it so that people can go back to working with that original or going back to that pool page with that library page, we can just delete the URL from the redirect management tool here, and it goes back to the usual connections. Does the concept of redirects make sense to everyone? Okay. So what we have left to do is kind of look with what we have here, because this is within content. Well, this is how we, nope, hold on. My daughter's school is calling. If you could excuse me for 2 seconds. Sorry about that. My daughter's not feeling well, so I just call my wife to go pick her up from school. So she's not feeling well. Anyways, back to this. Any questions about any of the things you've seen so far before I get into the contextual menu here on the left hand side? Because this is kind of how we drive around on the inside. Everybody good so far? Okay. Getting around and changing what we're looking at here is completely controlled by this contextual menu here on the left-hand side. And it contains absolutely sort of the entryways into anything you want to work with. Now, it's broken down into 5 segments here. Now, you'll have access to all of these particular pieces, but some of them you won't even really touch. The important one is the very first one. So this one with the little house on it, these are your pages. So you notice it has a little black triangle to the left of it here, and that denotes that there are things attached to this. So everything functions like a hierarchy, okay, or a parent-child relationship. This piece that we're looking at says recreation. That's your home page, okay? So when I click on that, it takes us over to the details of your homepage that we can work with. But if I click on the little triangle that goes with it here, it shows me the children to that. And so the very first things that we have in there are news and alerts. So this alerts piece is that white pop-up that we see when we first get here. That's where that's controlled from. And news are where we build and maintain the news stories. So that's the very first section we come in here, come and see within here. Now, we're not going to work with these right now. We're going to save these and work with them first thing tomorrow morning, but they're right here at the very top. Now, beneath that, we have your recreation site. Okay, so here is when I click on this recreation, this is just an interior page about recreation. But if you think about it, what that really is just on the outside here, it's this node right here. Okay, that node called recreation itself, well, that's governed right here. And you notice it has an expansion arrow. And if I expand that, there's those 4 pages that I have attached to it when I click on it. Now, they don't automatically show up here. We've told those pages to go be there. There is a difference between what this does and what we have on the outside. This is from a different spot, designating that this goes here. This is just a storage area. So think of it like an actual storage site. You know, when you go there and it's a white building with the big orange doors on, that kind of thing. Think of it like that. When we take a look at the outside of the building, there are 4 big orange doors on it. And all the contents behind those doors have to do with the pages that we're storing. So we're storing all those pages behind those doors. So we have the 4 major pieces. So if I just collapse this back up, we have recreation, culture, Aurelia Youth Center, and parks and facilities. Well, those are the ones we have up here at the top. So as we build pages moving along, we're going to attach them inside the orange door that's relevant. So we've already put in 4 pages for aquatics, fitness programs, and seniors at play. These are where those particular pages are living. And we can actually have sub pages in there. So if we had a bunch of different pages to different aquatics programs, aquatics may be the master page about all things aquatic, and we might have sub pages underneath of it that would run off as children of the aquatics page. So we can store and organize our sections here of our storage unit. Okay. So that's what these do. And we'll go over those in great detail because we'll be working with those as we create pages. Now we have things beyond that, but these are things you won't ever have to worry about. Your privacy policy, well, that just is, right? You can access the privacy policy from down here in the footer, so you can go off and get that information from there. Well, that's what that governs that, and it just lives there. And so no matter which page I'm on and I want to go visit the privacy policy, well, that's where it lives. But unless it needs to change, you don't need to do anything with it. Then we have the not found 404 page. So if you have a broken link on your page and it's not finding a particular page, we have a 404 page already built for it to go to, and it's got a link back to the home page for people to go back and start the search again. Then we have a sitemap. Now the sitemap, if I go into here, what the sitemap does is it takes all your pages and organizes them onto a singular page. And once we have at the top, we're picking and choosing what we want displayed here. The sitemap takes them all and adds them in. So you can see that under the recreation section, we have a recreation page, and as children to the recreation page, we have the aquatics, fitness, pros, and seniors. We don't have anything attached down here, but this works automatically. As you add pages and put them out there, it will add automatically to the sitemap. You don't actually need to do anything with it. Okay. Then subscribe. We've seen the subscription module. Well, yep, go ahead, Erica.
Sorry, I'm just wondering if that sitemap in the footer will be visible and accessible to the public, or if that's something that we would have the option of hiding.
This particular piece, if you don't want to have a sitemap engageable to the public, you can certainly remove it from this resources piece. I can show you how to do that. All of the pieces that we have here are simply hyperlinks. And if we don't want one, we remove it from the host that's controlling what's being displayed here in the footer, and we can have it removed so that no one connects with the sitemap if it's something you feel isn't of value or something you don't want the public to attach to.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Great question. Okay. Beyond that, we have subscribe. So that subscription module where I clicked on it, it said, remember, it's got the piece that says that it's a new newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter. We should say newsletter. So we've got all these failings to do things. I do believe that the content, so it's not going to be held here. It's actually going to be, your subscription module is actually going to be held in the global segment. That's okay. This just governs all the things that are happening and the different messages that can be there. You don't need to do anything. They just are what they are. Okay. Now, then we do have the context directory. Now, the context directory is a unique function, and I'll show you. It takes about 8 minutes to show how this works. We'll do this tomorrow, but it's just a unique way of being able to display your contacts instead of having a page that we build. This does it all for you. So we'll go over this in greater detail tomorrow. But really, it's the only of things once we get past our storage areas. It's the only thing that we actually really work with beyond here. The search functionality, that's that magnifying glass you see out there. It just works. Okay. Now, all these things like search engine configurations and parsers, you probably won't even see these. Okay, because I get to see these because I'm a super admin. They probably won't be visible to yours because you don't need to edit those things. Those are things that our team set up. So really, you probably get to see down to search, and that's about it. But that is just what's here on this navigational piece. So with this first piece that says recreation with the little house, that's just how you navigate around to the storage areas and work on pages. Okay. Now we'll work on that extensively for the remainder of today once we get past it. But I do want to tell you what the rest of these do. The next one we have here is global, and global is the mask that overlays everything, that governs your color schemes and your font styles and things like that. What has been pre-created and created as a template gets laid over as a mask on everything. Now, one of the things that we can do with global is we can have multiple global pieces. And what we're saying is that all these global pieces then overlay something deeper inside. I know it says very vague. This global as a default, if I click on it, it's broken down into 5 sections. Okay. In the settings, which is the first segment, it says the design style that is the overlay for the entire site is based upon the City of Aurelia Recreation. Well, what's that? That is in the next tab that we have here, which is called design. Now you have access to this. You purchased the ability to work with this, and we'll go over this more specifically tomorrow. We'll do a whole section on it. But when I go in there, there is the City of Aurelia Recreation. And those are the color schemes that are available for like buttons and things like that. We have built it upon the colors that come with your logo and stuff like that. Now, if I go inside that, We can break things down about the layout of things and the logos that we're using and the color schemes and the spacing and the fonts. When you guys go into design, you'll have access to create your own designs for this. You can go in and play around with colors. So if your libraries have a different color scheme because they have their own logos, you can create another global overlay that's dedicated to libraries. And maybe you got another one for your aquatic centers and all those kinds of things. Each one of those particular pieces could have their own global scheme. Okay. Now we have the default one here. And this is the one that says the City of Aurelia Recreation. We've already set it up with the font and the colors and things like that. And because we have this built here, when I go to global under settings, I've inserted that, well, not me personally, but we've inserted that as being the override. And what it says is globally. So for every page you go to, these are the fonts and the font sizes and the colors and the way the buttons are laid out. And every page you go to has the same thing. If you create other global pieces, you can insert them. Now, what I mean by that is if I go to the home page, the recreation page, okay? If I go under advanced, it says the global node is the global. So whatever global is pushing out there, it's adopting, which is that color scheme that we've added with that Aurelia color scheme and font style. So this drapes it over everything because it applies this to this and everything underneath of it. Well, because it's at the very top level at the home page, every child piece that exists underneath of it automatically gets this global overlay, okay, by default. Now, as we said, if you have a different color scheme or style that you want for the Aurelia Youth Center, because they've got their own logo and color scheme, you can go to your design tab, create your own design style, and what you can do is you can create a second global piece that would be like global hyphen Aurelia Youth Center. And what you would do is you come to the Aurelia Youth Center, and under its advanced, you can override the global node. So it's saying don't do the regular global node anymore, which is the default for everything. For here, I want it to have this new design style, which is based upon the global hyphen Aurelia Youth Center. And you can customize your fonts and your color schemes and logos and things like that. And what it does is it inserts it at this level, and then from this level and all the children that would be stored underneath it, it adopts this new global node. So it drapes over everything that's a child to where I've inserted it here. Now, I haven't shown you any of these kinds of things, and it's just kind of conceptual, but it's understanding that the global node impacts the display of absolutely everything for wherever I insert it for everything beyond it. But I can override it for these individual sections if I want, or even an individual page. Does that make sense? And we'll go over this in bigger detail later on. Okay, so global has all these segments. So settings governs what it looks like. Navigation, that's what governs what pops in here. So there's a specific section that we go to say these pages I want under these particular nodes. So we manually go in under the global into the navigation and add those pages in. And I'll show you how to do that later on tomorrow when we deal with the global section, because we'll spend a whole section on this. Okay. The footer. Now, as we've seen, the footer is always here like this. Well, the footer is designed to look that way because it's all in here, but you can edit it. So, Erica, you had asked if you didn't want the sitemap. The sitemap is part of the middle section under resources here. So if I find that section right here, when I go into there, it says the sitemap is just a hyperlink. If I just highlight that and click delete, it will delete that from there. I'll now have 3 on display on the front end. There's no longer access to the sitemap. Does that kind of wrap up the question you would ask there, Erica?
Yep, that is great.
Yeah. So that's it. You're just able to govern what's in the footer and adjust that. And then we have reusable components and reusable pods. We'll learn about those later on today. These are used when we are projecting things out universally. So we might have a privacy policy or a disclaimer or something like that. And we're going to put it out in the exact same format all over the place in the site. So rather than copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste everywhere in the site with the same information, I can create a host location here as a reusable pod or a reusable component. And what I can do is I can then put that out there, and because it's a host location, everywhere I decide to use it will display that information the exact same way. And the beauty of that is that should your privacy policy or your disclaimer change, all you have to do is update the host location, and everywhere it's being projected out to updates with the new information. That's better than using copy and paste, because if you put it on 72 different pages and you change it, you have to go to 72 different pages and do an update. Whereas with this particular process, you simply update the host and all 72 pages, the information on the 72 pages, because it's simply pulling from the same place on all 72 pages. You update the host, it updates all the displays. Because you might get through with the copy and paste, say, nah, I can only find 68 of them. So now there's 4 out there that have incorrect information. So just a way to be able to use something universally throughout there. And that's why we put it here under global. The concept of global is just putting things that will apply everywhere in the site. Now we'll come back and look at this in greater detail as we learn more. As I said, with the design, this is where we can go in and create color schemes and different font styles and things like that. And we'll deal with that tomorrow as well. I don't go into a super amount of detail because we could literally spend 2 weeks in here looking at every bit of minutia. I'm going to show you the basics of what it's capable of doing, what we can target within here, and then some sort of guidelines or rules, because we do have to maintain accessibility throughout all of this, and I will deal with that in great detail as we move through. And so when we just do our own design pieces, we have to bear that accessibility requirements in mind at all times. And I'll go over that later on. Then we have custom integration. So you'll see this, but you won't actually be able to do anything with it, or you shouldn't do anything with it if you can get in. This is just custom pieces that we've added into here that just work. So there's no need to go in here and actually work with anything if it is even visible to you. And then we have a recycle bin. Now, the recycle bin is really cool. In our past, when we were using our other website production pieces, we used to have people set up on servers. And if you know anything about servers, we host multiple people on the same server. But when you deleted something, it would go into a recycle bin, but the recycle bin's on the server. And because you share it with other people, everybody, regardless of what site they're on, gets dumped into that same recycle bin. And what would end up happening is people say, oh, I made a mistake, I deleted that by accident. But they couldn't go into the recycle bin because it's on the server, right? They would have to call our support team and have somebody from our support team go in and pull it out, because we didn't want to have full access for people to go sort of dumpster dive, so to speak, and pull other people's work and information back. So we had that kind of locked away. Well, our new system, Govstack here, it's hosted on the cloud. And because on the cloud, it's yours and yours alone. And because of that, anything you delete, it goes into a recycle bin that you can access yourself. So any page you happen to delete will go to the recycle bin, and it'll sit in your recycle bin until you empty it out. And that way, should you have any regrets and you want to bring it back, you can go to the recycle bin and you can pull it out. Okay, so those are the 5 segments that we have to work with. But once again, the majority of everything we're going to work in is going to be recreation and the child pages underneath of it. And the reason for that is that global, even if you do want to create your own design style, you kind of create the whole thing ahead of time and then insert it, and then it just kind of is. So within these kinds of things, we'll kind of set it all up, as you're getting ready to go live, and then you probably won't touch it unless you decide to do an overhaul of the logo and color schemes or something and need to build something new. The most part, you're just going to be working on pages, building pages and editing existing ones. So as far as what we have here in the contextual menu on the left-hand side, are there any questions about those? Okay, so once we're inside here, I'm going to open this up. Okay, so here's what we're looking at here. So when I want to work with things, I'm going to really kind of just work within these things. Well, what do we see when we look at pages? Well, there are only 2 types of pages in here. There's the home page and there's interior pages. Now, when I click on the home page, when it goes into focus, I have a bunch of submenus that are here about what I'm looking at. But if I go to an inside page, something like aquatics, if you take a look at what we have here, there's an extra one on the inside, and it's called the summary. We only summarize interior pages, okay? But the other ones are universal, whether it's the home page or whether it's an interior page. Well, what do these things do? Well, content is the content of the page. The layout, so we're on aquatics here, it's aligned to the left. Now the layout that's on the left here, what this means is that the information that you're going to be able to create and edit and things like that is going to be hosted on the left-hand side of the page. On the right-hand side of the page, there's going to be a sub-navigational menu and a context portion. So if I go out here and I go to your aquatics page, you see that the editable portion where we put our information is on the left-hand side here, and I have a sub-navigational menu and a contact information box. Every single interior page uses this template. So they will always be laid out this way. The only one that's actually different is the home page. If I go back to the top page, you'll notice the layout is full. And what this means is it's not compartmentalized with sub-navigation and contact. It's the full width of the page. So when I head back out here and look at the home page, you see that all of our particular pieces run the full width of the page. Okay, so that's all that those are doing. Now below that, we get into the actual things on the page. Now, most of your pages aren't going to have anything. We're leaving the content up to you. What components do you want to use to build an aquatics page, a fitness page, a progress page, whatever your page happens to be about? The home page obviously comes with content pieces because, well, we already have stuff out here because it acts as the hub. But at any point in time, you can edit that. Now, with some of the older website production programs, it would say the layout of the home page is static. It's always set up this way. You can just simply edit the content that's being displayed, which means that these things will be permanent, and you simply go into each one of the segments and edit it. And you can treat your home page like that if you want. You can leave these five items perpetually and just edit them. And just edit them by clicking on them and going inside. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. The main content area here is just breaking things down into sections, and each of these sections can function differently. So at the very top, we have the main banner and search. Well, that's what we have up here at the top, right? That's what governs this. Now, after that, we have those icon-driven call to actions. Well, that's the icon call to actions. And then we have the image call to actions. Well, that's this segment here. Then the content banner, and that's the full width piece that we have running across here. And then we have the what's happening section. And the what's happening section contains your news and your social media. Now, that's all we have on the homepage, those 5 pieces. But you'll say, but when I go out here, I've got a header and I've got a footer and the sign up to our incorrectly spelled newsletter. Well, these things are universal. They show up on every page. They're part of global. So what we're able to work with on the homepage is what is above, sign up to our misspelled newsletter, and below the header at the top. All that stuff can be edited. Different pictures, different content, different links, all those things. So everything is editable. But wait, there's more. I can still add other pieces in here. If I have an idea that is something I want on the homepage, I can add it in there, and I can shuffle the order around. I can edit any of these. I can hide these and turn them off. I can delete them. It's whatever I want to do. Okay, so you should have some kind of governance policy over who's responsible for the homepage to ensure that the content is going to be accurate, and that we're not, creating a homepage with 64 different components on it, making it take you 3 hours to scroll through to get to everything. So should have some kind of governance policy about in saying, we leave it this way. We just, change the content, or maybe you just leave the content static, right? We never change the pieces that we have here. However you need to use it. Now we'll show how these work shortly, but this is just content. Okay. Beyond that, we have extra content. Well, what's extra content? Well, extra content doesn't do too much on the home page, but if I go to the aquatics page and we look at extra content, what this does is the banner. Because when I went into the aquatics page, at the top, I have this picture of the 2 people sitting on a bench. Now, this may not be the picture I want for the aquatics page. Maybe I want another picture of people swimming. So this is the default picture that shows up here. This is the picture that will show up at the top of each and every interior page that you build. Okay, should you choose to have one with a banner, but aren't stuck with it. You can simply go to the extra content and change the banner. Now, the difference between content and extra content is that extra content sits outside of this left-hand side area that's defined within regular content, because under here the banner sits outside of that because the banner runs full width. It's not limited by the left-hand side with the content and the right-hand side with the sub-navigational menu of the content area. That's being pulled in outside of that, so the banner's nice and big. So but in order to change it, I have to come to extra content to be able to use it. Now, I'm able to work with a few other things in here as well. I can hide top global components. Now, you don't actually have any, but I can, on certain page by page, turn things off. Now, what we're talking about global top components, this is those reusable components found in the global section. Okay, if we were using those on a bunch of different pages to put, maybe it could be a land acknowledgement. We might say we're having a land acknowledgement on each and every page at the top. On certain pages where I didn't want to use that land acknowledgement, I don't know why you wouldn't use it, but you could actually turn it off and hide it, but you could set it up to be something that's universal on each page. We can do that below the main content. So there's nothing added in specifically under main content, but what that would be is at the very bottom here, before the blue bar about signing up to our incorrectly spelled newsletter, I could put something that will go full width underneath the regular content, but before this blue bar. I can hide bottom components. So what this is global bottom components are pieces that we have inserted there, okay? Now this, by turning this global bottom component, this is a global bottom component. If I didn't want to sign up to our incorrectly spelled newsletter, I can shut this off on a page saying it has nothing to do with the page. Let's just turn it off. Well, you just slide this button over and it no longer shows that piece, okay? Hide global pods. The global pod, and you'll recognize that from being the reusable pods within the global segment, are pods that we can pull in that we can use on every page. Well, what are we doing with this? We have a global pod that contains your contact information. And this global pod is what projects this contact information out to every page. This is universal. No matter what page you go to, that will be the contact information. What I can do with that under extra content is hide the global pods. It no longer shows that contact information. And in fact, I can insert my own contact information by adding it in the pods that goes here. So I turn the one that's on off, that's by default off, and I can add my own. So if the page that I have about aquatics needs to go to aquatic staff, it's just a rec department that's all about all things pool and swimming related, right? We're not sent up to the ski people or the library or anything like that. We can change this and insert our own pod that is directing the information to a unique area. And I'll show you how we work with those later on as well. But we can edit those things. The last piece I have is a modal window, and it's saying, well, when do you want these pods to be turned on? If I leave it as is, the pod is already there, but I could do things and have things show up after a specific amount of time or when they decide to scroll on the page. I don't use these very often because once I've gone through a page, I was like, oh, that's the information I want, and I go to move it, or after a specific time, something pops up in the middle that I can't now see the information I want. I can find it a little bit annoying sometimes, so I don't use these very often, but you do have the option of timing or upon scroll, making your pod show up, okay? But that's what extra content does. For the most part, you might change the contact information or edit the banner to be something more relevant, but that's about it. Okay. Now the summary. The summary allows me to put another heading in here, which of course we create under content as well, and a little text box and maybe a picture. And what this does is it allows us to create a little sort of tidbit or a little page dedicated to the content that's here. And one of the things we can do is there's a unique component, actually there's a couple of unique components that will pull the information from these summary pages. And what it does is it allows us to create a page like a brochure, and I can create a page that pulls these things in from the summary pages automatically and then lists a whole bunch of pages of my choice all on a singular page. Now I'll show you as we build the summary pages through here, but we can create stacks of things that look a lot like this on a page. So you might have a summer recreation camps, and you might have swim camp and math camp and archery camp, all these different camps together like a set of brochures, and we can have it pulled from the summary. So as I build pages, I'll be adding to the summary so that I can then show you how that works. But that's what the summary page does. Now, the ones we have beyond that, you probably won't touch. Navigation is if I want to hide it. I want to hide it from regular navigation. I want to hide it from internal searches. Well, that makes things hard to find. My suggestion is don't. You don't need to turn or work with any of these particular pieces in here. Okay, hide it from the sub navigation so it doesn't show up when you actually go to an inside page. We don't want that page to show up in the list of sub navigation pieces we have on the side of our page here. Well, that makes it hard to get to certain things, but if you needed to, you could turn them off. So you probably won't touch navigation. SEO and share, if you're unfamiliar with what SEO, it stands for search engine optimization. All it really does is, can I make this more searchable, or can I use alternative words and things to have people get here? And the answer is yeah, but we have it kind of set up by default. You really don't need to do anything. What it's saying is, should you have a result saying, hey, here's the aquatics page for the city of Aurelia, this is the way it will be displayed. But it also defines what's up here at the top. You notice that that's how the tab is written. So, but it has a default that will take the name of the page and put the city of Aurelia Recreation on the other side of a vertical line. This happens automatically. You actually don't need to do anything. The only time you would do it is if you wanted to say something different. So if you wanted to have this say something different on the tab at the top, you can add it into this line right here. Okay. Now, we also have a web page description. If you've ever Googled something, and most of us have, there's when you get the result, it's a hyperlink that you click on. But immediately beneath it, there's like a little 3-line blurb that kind of gives you a highlight of what you find when you get there. Well, this allows me to create a customized set of lines there. So it's limited to 155 to 160 characters. And I can create my own little custom description that will be shown on these search results. Now, it's not a required field. Should you choose to leave it blank, it'll simply grab the first 155 to 160 characters that are written on the page and display that as well. So the truth is, you probably don't need to do anything here. And it says, okay, well, you can do a social share image. We have a default one set in the global saying every time you share out to your, you share out this page, it's going to go to your Facebook, or it's going to go to your Instagram, or whatever it happens to be. You're going to show the same logo for that. And it's being pulled in from global. The only time you would use this is if you had a specific page that had its own social share image. You could put that in here, and it would be for this page and this page alone. So that's what the SEO and share does. You probably won't do too much with that. Scripts. For those of you who are tech savvy enough, you know what scripts are. I'm not. I don't work on the coding side of things. So scripts to me is just magic. It's just magic words you put out here and then magic happens on the display. That's all I know about it. But for those of you that do work with scripts, this allows you to go page by page and add scripts in as necessary. And you can position those pieces. So there's the header opening scripts, or header closer scripts, opening body, closing body, those kinds of things. And you simply copy and paste your scripts in here and the magic happens. So, once again, if you're not savvy, this is not an integral part saying, if it's not done, you're lacking something on your page. It's an option. And the final piece is advanced. And advanced, as I showed you, is just we could override the global node. So if I don't want it to have that color scheme or those fonts, I could go through the design tab, create my own global piece, and insert it right here. And for aquatics in all child pages of aquatics, anything that lays beneath it in the hierarchy, not fitness, it's at the same level, but anything that's a subsection of aquatics and beyond will now adopt that overridden global node styling. Okay, hide the website header section or the footer section. Hide the logo. Why you would do those things, I don't know. The only thing I would really say is there's a disable delete here. And these things should be on at least for your home page and your head pages or your nodes that are here. You turn the disable delete on and no one can delete the page. Advanced is only for administrators, so regular editors can't even get in here. But there's an easier way to worry about who can go in and delete and not delete. By when we create groups of people, we can go to that editor group and turn off the whole delete function, meaning that doesn't matter what page it is, none of the editors can delete. That becomes an admin only kind of function. So we can work with those things, and we'll deal with those things tomorrow when we deal with the user section. But as far as the subsections that I have going across any given page, do they make sense conceptually? Now, as I said, 99% of the time you'll be on content. And then 99% of the time you'll be working with the pages. And 99% of the time you'll be working with the content area, changing the content that's being displayed. So it seems to be kind of really content driven. But we're only looking at this content segment because up here in this line, it says we're looking at the content. We have a couple of other pieces that we have here. Redirects is now working with that redirect function that we saw on the master page, but we're working specifically with the aquatics page because that's what we're looking at here. So I could create redirects page by page if necessary from the inside instead of sitting at the top guessing at what page I needed to use, okay? And then we have info. And what info does is it brings you in and it says, well, here's a link. And all this does when I click on it is it will open a new tab and show me the page. Only published pages have a link. If it's an unpublished page, it will not. And it just gives you the ability to then go and click on it and say, well, let's see what the page looks like. Below it is the history. But as we saw the history earlier, when we took a look at when we first got in here on the welcome page, the history was showing, oh, here's recent activity in the whole site. And then was like, well, here's all your recent history. This is page specific, saying that Michelle created the page and then Nick came in here and moved some content and stuff like that. This will show you, as we do things, it will add on to this list showing all kinds of things that we're doing on a page. So you know what's been edited. Or if you take a look and remember I said, if you see a bunch of pages that are pending changes and you want to go and ask somebody if they're complete with it, if you come here to the info tab on that page, it'll tell you who's the last person that was working and save them things on there, but it's not yet published. And you could follow up with that person to find out the status of the page. Okay. We have this little piece that says rollback. As you publish it, you'll end up with a whole bunch of different published versions of this page throughout time. There might come a time when you're like, somewhere we got off track with how we wanted this page to function. You might say the last time it kind of functioned the way we wanted was back in whatever date it is. What you could do is you can click on rollback here and you can go back in the past and pick any one of the previously published versions, and you can click on the rollback button and it will make that the current version of the page, not what the public specifically seeing, but will put you in the view of that page from the past without having to delete all the things to get back there. So what it is, you can revert back to an older style and just update the information to make it current because you like the layout of that particular piece, and then you publish it, it becomes the new version of that page. So that's one of the functions we have, is doing a rollback. The last piece is just general information. You don't need to know much about this stuff, just the status of this page is published. If it was an unpublished page, it would say unpublished in here, and I do believe it's like a mustard orange yellow color, or it might say published and then in brackets pending changes, meaning there's a published version of that page that's being shown out there, but there's content that has been updated and saved but not published to update what the public is interacting with. So it will show you the status that's there. Now, I'm not going to tell you what actions do, and it's not because I don't want to, it's just because that's going to be something that we're going to go into greater detail when we start working with pages themselves, is working with the actions that are working there in there. But what we're doing is we're using this particular section or hierarchy here to organize. And when we find our page and we've created it, we can use the content or the info to work with the page. Most of the time you'll be on content, and you'll be in here adding content pieces or editing those content pieces that are in there, keeping things up to date. Yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Is there some system that is currently in place or that we could put in place for an approval process for page publishing? Our current website, whenever staff requests an update or they do updates, they submit it for approval, and then a supervisor will review, approve, and publish. Can we implement that, or is that already in place?
You can create your own version if you have a system saying that every time you're done, just save it up and then send an email out to so-and-so and they'll check it out. You can create your own. There is a temporary one that's in place here, but it's not super functional. I shouldn't say functional because that means it doesn't work. It's not as easy to use as we had hoped, but we do have one in the works. Did you ever use one of our older programs called iCreate with your previous sites?
Yes, that's what we're currently using, I
Right.
believe.
So we're adopting that same approval structure that we have within iCreate for this.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have it. It just hasn't rolled out yet. So it's a temporary one that we have, and just basically when you go to send something, it will give you the option to send off a notification to someone. So you put in who you want it to send off to, and then we have another toggle that says send to publish, meaning that it gets sent off to be published somewhere else. But once again, you're putting in the name of the person that it gets sent to, and it's kind of clumsy. Rather than the smooth automation that we have with the program we have for iCreate. So we are in the near future going to roll out one that will mimic what we have with the iCreate one, because it works so well, right? Like you just target a group or person, everything they do, then gets automated. Now you can turn the publish function off for your regular editor, saying that, well, you have to remember to send this off because you can't publish this when you're done. So you got to follow this current process to do it. We can shut the publish functionality off for people, saying you don't even have a button to publish. But that has its own set of limitations, saying that it always is someone else's responsibility to finish the process. And if that person's on vacation, who knows how long before it gets out there. So there's a little bit of configuration that will need to be done if you want to use an approval process as it stands.
Okay.
Yeah, but we do have the ability to do so.
Okay.
Good questions. Okay, so that's the stuff that we can do, and that's what we'll work with the users, because as we look at the group, we can turn functionality on and off and set those kinds of requirements on, and we'll deal with that tomorrow when we do that that admin portion at the end. So most of the time, you'll be working on the content area of your CMS and within the content structure here, and then under the content section of the page in the content of the sub-content piece here. So content after content after content after content is where you're going to spend most of your time, because you're really here to make sure things work out. Well, how do we deal with those things? Well, just like with iCreate, and now that I know you were working with iCreate, I can sort of create connective pieces, saying, oh, it's kind of like this. With iCreate, as I said, you couldn't change your homepage. How we had it laid out for you was how you got it. It's wide open now if you want to change your homepage. And the same thing goes with your regular pages. When you come here, there is no template. Now, did you guys use the layout builder functionality with your iCreate version?
I don't know. I almost wonder if communications would be able to answer that question a little bit better, or somebody
And they're
else
not
from our
here.
team. I feel
Yeah.
like I only just edit the content, like the
Yep.
body of it, and like I'm familiar with swapping out contacts, but the actual layout I've never really touched.
Right. So with iCreate, there's a default when you first create a page, and the component that you work with is just that kind of word processing box, and that's called the standard one column. But that's all your page could do. It just always had that box, and you could throw a picture in there, you could put a table, and you could do those kinds of things. But that was how it worked. And there was a layer called Layout Builder. And what Layout Builder allowed you to do was to add multiple rows onto your page. So you could have that standard one column, but then you could add other rows with different functional pieces. But unless you had it designed with a um, uh, special content, there were really only two other components you can use, and they were very specific about how they were displayed. And so there was really three different ways you could display it. Well, this is like that layout builder being on all the time, meaning that every single page is up to your imagination and creativity. You know, if you want to put accordions in it, put accordions. If you want to put text box in it, put there. You want to put pictures, go ahead. Anything you want, you can do on any given page. And there are so many more components that we can work with here compared to what we have with iCreate. So this has become a lot more fun and wide open to suit everyone's creative nature. So as we work with these pages, we're simply adding into the main content box. And if I say add content, it gives me a list of different types of components that I can insert it. Sorry, the hiccups. And we'll go over those when I build my first page. But that's adding onto an existing page. But there's more that we can do than just build pages and throw content onto it. We only have 4 pages right now. You got to go in and be able to add more pages under your section. So when you go over and look at the contextual menu here, when we take a look at any of these pieces, it's really just what's on the page. But at any segment here, we could actually right click on here, and I get a menu saying, okay, well, what do you want to do under aquatics? So if I hit create from here, I am creating a child page under aquatics. So if I was targeting a specific pool facility or program, a senior swim or something like that, I would create a page as a child to aquatics. All those pages that we would have under there all have to do with aquatics, and aquatics is simply the category or the node that's holding all those things. So by right clicking on in context of anything, I'm creating something underneath of it. Okay. I could delete a page. And like I said, I can turn that we can turn that functionality off for certain users and say, we don't want anyone but administrators to delete pages. Well, we turn that functionality off. It's just where you would go to do it if you had the functionality. Create content templates. That's what we're doing when we have this layout that says, hey, everything's still left and everything's using this global color and stuff like that. We can create our own templates and layouts using the design tab to be able to create these things. So when we create these content templates, we can do it here or we can do it through the design tab. And if I go down to the design tab here, and I'm just going to discard any changes I made, when I head into here and create a design, all I'm really doing is creating one of those particular layouts and adding it in here. Okay. And being able to create that. But we can create templates in here as we work with these. These are templates that we can design. Say we want to use this particular design theme on all those templates. It governs the fonts and the colors and everything for all those templates you choose to pick for a certain area, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, also with this, well, it's a little slow here. There we go. I can move things. In iCreate, when you built a page and put it under one of the, in iCreate, we call them verticals. When you stored them in a particular vertical, they had to live there forever. Whether you wanted them displayed under that one or not, it lived there. You can't move it. Well, not so anymore. You can move things around. You build a page or you build a bunch of things under aquatics here, and you say, wow, you know what? Aquatics is actually better under parks and facilities. You can move aquatics and all your sub pages into the parks and facilities and move them, shuffle them around. So you can organize this on the fly at any point in time. Now, I would suggest coming up with a strategy or a policy saying when you would use those kinds of things, about moving things around, because you don't want to come in looking for your page and somebody's moved it, somewhere far away, away from there. So once again, any of these functional pieces we can turn on and off for your users. So if you don't want your editors, your regular editors, to move pages around, turn the move function up, make it a bin only, that kind of thing. Copy. So if you have a page that you're using, say for, municipality might use something like dog licenses, and then all of a sudden they pass a bylaw saying, well, you got a license center, you're aquarium fish. Okay, what it would do then is rather than start from scratch creating an aquarium fish licensing page, you could just copy the dog licensing page, asking the same kind of information, tweak the cost and the due dates and stuff like that, and change the pictures from a bunch of puppies to a tank full of fish, whatever you got to do. But rather than start from scratch every time, you can copy. And you can sort. Now, as I showed you, when we go to these pages, we have menus the submenus. These should be alphabetical. When you add a page into here, by default, it will add it at the bottom. So when you come in here, you may need to put them into alphabetical order, in which case you can use the sort function to order the positions of your pages. Now, this kind of stuff is like the menu manager was in iCreate. Now, menu manager was admin only back with iCreate. It's wide open now, unless you want to shut that functionality off for your users, right? Anybody can go in and do these things. Now, a lot of this stuff down here, you guys won't have access to, like, giving people the ability to set permissions, locking the public out of certain pages. Well, that's not something you just want out there, or changing the culture and host names, which is changing these kind of things out here. Well, we don't want that. So for the most part, those things will probably be locked out for most users, but the ones at the top down to sort, you'll have access to those ones, okay? So that's how we build things within here. Now, if I wanted to create a page, I would click on create and it will say, okay, well, let's go create a page. Well, that's what the three little dots do here. Okay, so if I right click, I get the regular menu, and I have to hit create to go into the create menu. The three dots takes you directly into the create menu. So if I was sitting out here and just click on three dots, it takes me directly into the create menu. The last thing to show you before we actually build any pages is the actions piece over here. This is the lazy menu. If I click on this, it's the same menu I got if I right clicked over here on aquatics. All it did is it saved me that extraordinary amount of energy for me to drag my mouse all the way to the left-hand side and right click. It just gave me the ability to perform that over here on the right side, but it's the same menu. So in context of whatever page, we highlighted in the pinky salmon color, I could use the actions on the right-hand side, or I could right-click on the left-hand side. It's the same menu. The three dots takes me directly into the create menu if I want to do something. Otherwise, once the page is created, I'm using the main content area to be able to add and make choices about how I want to display my content. And that's all there really is to building a page. Now, I obviously haven't shown you how to do any of that, but I certainly will. But as far as what we can click on and menus and stuff that we come up, I know there's a lot of stuff here, but does the concept of what we're working with here, that we're always sort of really going to be under content for all these things for the most part, and that by to edit things, we just come to the page and work with the main content. If we want to create something new, we're just right clicking here, or using the lazy one over here on the right. That's all there is to working with your pages. Now, what it is, it's 10:30. It's a good time for us to take our first break, but this is kind of the tool and how we logged in to be able to get here. Did all this kind of make sense, that you start out, by using that platforms.govstack piece, you'll log in, you'll pick that CMS from your dashboard, and it'll bring you into here. Once you're here, you'll start on that welcome page like this, and you'll simply use your navigational portion here on the left-hand side to pick whatever page you want to work with or create a new one. We haven't got into actually what we do when we get there, but does the concept of getting here and working with these things, that make sense so far? All right, let me stop the recorder here and we'll take a break.